We're headed to northern Wisconsin today, visiting the Wisconsin Windigo of the NAHL and their stadium, the historic Eagle River Sports Arena, better known as the Dome. This is the 49th Stadium Review episode, so let's get into it. Headed north from Minnesota through the state of Wisconsin, through lots of farm fields until we got into the Northwoods Forest. And of course, since they are the Windigo, I was always fascinated by the name Wisconsin Windigo. Not does it just roll off the tongue nicely, but it has a lot of cultural and historical significance to it. In Algonquin mythology, Windigo are believed to be cannibalistic creatures that come out in the winter and are forced to eat humans. And they represent starvation, famine, and kind of the dark side of humanity. So on my drive up, of course, I had to listen to some Windigo horror stories off YouTube to kind of set me in the right mood, and they were quite freaky, I'm not gonna lie. But I love leaning into the indigenous folklore side of things. So I gotta tell you, this is one of the craziest arenas I've ever been to. But first, before we even got to go into the arena, we had to check out the Wisconsin Hockey Hall of Fame, which is right in front of it. This opened in 1984 and has so many amazing artifacts all throughout the history of hockey in the state of Wisconsin. After checking that out, we had to head outside to check out the exterior of the dome. So this was constructed back in 1925 and is a mostly wooden dome and was the very first indoor hockey arena built in the entire state of Wisconsin. And I must admit that I definitely have a thing for wooden domes, since my alma mater, Northern Michigan University, plays their football games inside the world's largest wooden dome. Before we head in, if you could do me a massive favor and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to boot things back up. I know it's been a while, I've been a little bit off my game, but we have so many stadiums that we need to review. So go ahead, click that thumbs up and click the subscribe button. The Wisconsin Windigo made this their home in 2022, and it seats a capacity of 2,000 fans. So I have been getting a lot more into the NAHL recently, North American Hockey League, which is Tier 2 juniors in the US. But honestly, I probably would have never visited this place if it weren't for their announcer reaching out to me, Daniel on the mic, who is an absolutely stellar guy. So of course, I had to take the opportunity to get the ins and outs from their play-by-play guy who's there every game. First, taking a look at his domain in the press box, you're right on top of the ice from here, and just look at that wood structure throughout the building. Then he took me back to the locker room, which is actually off to the side of the dome in an exterior building. Heading back to the main entryway now of the stadium as he gets prepped for the game. There's so many great pictures on the wall showing the construction of the dome, as well as the history of all the teams that have played here. And I absolutely love this sign. Eagle River might be a little town, but we are into hockey in a big way. To be honest, this whole place just felt like you were stepping back in time. I mean, it felt like we were in the 1920s when this place was first built, with all the history here, just how old school everything is. Continuing that theme, going underneath the stands was absolutely incredible, as we had these narrow wooden passageways that winded their way underneath the seating. The seating itself is super interesting. There's no actual seats since it's just wood planks. Your butt is right where the person behind yours feet are gonna go as well. So it is a little cramped, but it is so nostalgic. And with it being so steep, you're right there on top of the action. Another super odd thing about the layout is how spaced out the benches are from each other. As you see this huge gap here between the benches, which is where the press box is right above it. And big shout out to the Windigo owner for getting me hooked up with a hat and a sweater, all the merch I needed to support the Windigo. I'll tell you what, it was pretty chilly in there.
I can see my breath.
But fortunately, they did have some heaters that hung over some of the top rows of the stands.
Sweating up here now.
And per tradition, had to pick up a puck before the game got going. And adding to the old school nostalgic feel, even the Zamboni seemed to be an old school looking Zamboni. Take a look at the Windigo goalie's pads, as the Windigo logo is in the pads when he puts them together. Absolutely slick. And we're ready for face-off, just taking in the whole structure in the wooden dome supports, as the Windigo face off against in-state rival, the Janesville Jets. I must admit, these Windigo uniforms are so sweet. If you know me well, you know that I absolutely love baby blue jerseys, and the bright blue on these Windigo jerseys really popped. One thing that I noticed that's absolutely terrifying is that some of the corners of the rink, the stands kind of tilt in a little bit. And if you're higher up in the stands, you're basically over the rink and there's no glass protecting you from the ice. So it's a little bit terrifying, but super cool being right there on top of the action, literally on top of the action.
It doesn't feel safe how close I am, and I love it.
First intermission, had to grab some food. Unfortunately, they did not have any hot dogs there, so I had to settle for a pretzel and some popcorn. On our second period section hop, I had to go over to the far side of the rink, check out our boy Daniel up there in the booth, and I found some really nice standing areas behind the net to hang out. The one thing that you really notice about the wooden frame of this is how it is absolutely plastered with ads. I think this is actually really fun because it gives more of that old feel to it. It's kind of like an old-timey baseball stadium where there's ads literally everywhere. It just adds to kind of the hometown feel that this rink has. The second period was full of so many chances from the Windigo, and I was right there behind the net that they were trying to score on, but they couldn't seem to get the puck in, despite having so many power play opportunities. Watching the visitors come off the ice after the second period, they actually had to put on their skate guards to go down into the locker room, so they did have some chairs there where guys could sit down and do that. Second intermission was chuck a puck, and for the third period, I made my way up to one of the corners, and this was kind of my favorite spot, just because you had a fantastic view of the whole dome itself, and also it's at the curved corner we talked about before where you're right there on top of the rink. However, one of the downsides is that it's kind of cramped for space up here at the top as the dome starts to curve in on top of you, but just makes it nice and cozy. The Windigo would come out firing in the third period, scoring 2 goals in pretty quick succession. And I absolutely love how these fans have bubbles that they're spraying into the air after every goal. Something really funny that I noticed on this side of the rink is that the penalty box is completely open on the side, as there's no barrier between the players sitting in the box and the walkway right next to it. I absolutely love this guy's last name here. Comstock definitely looks like something else. Oddly enough, I recently got to interview this guy with the Chicago Steel, and I mentioned that his last name definitely stood out, and he did not get the joke I was making at all. Being a small rink that can be very echoey, with the Windigo up 2-0 late in the game, they were absolutely feeding it to the Janesville Jets players, just chirping them so hard from the bench, and I could pick up a lot of what they were saying from where I was sitting across the ice. With the clock winding down in a 2-0 lead, the Windigo were able to secure the shutout over the Janesville Jets, and emphatically the goalie slammed the net down shut, signifying the shutout. No one's getting the puck in that golden nets. Big thank you to the Wisconsin Windigo for having me out for this amazing game, and especially Daniel for showing me around. Give him a follow on Twitter at DanielOnTheMic_. He's a fantastic guy, gonna go great places in the broadcasting world. And after the game was finished, I did explore the side rink next door, which is just a smaller practice rink. And to be honest with you, it was a little terrifying driving into the middle of nowhere to go camping for the night with all those Windigo horror stories in the back of my brain, going through the pitch black thick woods, but eventually I did find a spot to pull off. It was an out-of-season rest area, but hey, it was good to sleep for the night, and didn't take me too long. Just put those Windigo thoughts to the back of my mind. Thank you so much to the Wisconsin Windigo for having me out. It was an absolute blast up there. The Wooden Dome was spectacular, incredible venue. If you're in the area ever, it's 100% worth checking out a Wisconsin Windigo game at the Dome. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Thanks. Bye.